Hey, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast, your weekly dose of fertility wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach. This is your go-to podcast for all things to naturally nourish your fertility, embody womb healing, and reclaim your feminine power to accelerate your path to pregnancy. My expert guests and I will be having intentional conversations to discuss the many facets of a thriving, fertile foundation, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as women on our journey to motherhood. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. This episode is going to be a little bit different than the typical episode, and I'm really excited to start offering this to my listeners and the women in my fertility community as another way to support you on your journey. So in this episode, I'm actually going to be reviewing a couple's history and also some of their labs and just giving general feedback and the next steps that I would do to support a couple like them if I were to work with them. Now, just as a disclaimer, this episode is for informational and educational purposes only. Of course, you must refer to your doctor for any health questions. These are just things that, from a general sense, I would recommend. And if I wanted to do more unique support for a couple, then that's something that I'm going to share. But everyone is so unique and everyone's needs are different. Everyone's situation is different. This is a very unique situation, but I think that you may get something from it because there are a lot of commonalities that I found in both the female and the male's lab. So be sure to listen. And I'm just excited to dive into this with you guys. So this couple has been trying to conceive since May of 2024. So not quite a year yet, but they have definitely had their fair share of obstacles along the way. Following some labs over the summer that showed really, really poor sperm quality and low progesterone, they did try progesterone suppositories for a couple of cycles. They did have some medicated cycles with letrozole, and they also tried an IUI with no success. And they did actually end up taking a break from the medicated cycles, and she actually started noticing more irregular cycles after the medicated ones. So that is something to think about, is when you start bringing in foreign things into your body that maybe was already out of balance to begin with before kind of tackling what those specific barriers and obstacles, what is causing that imbalance to begin with. So when you don't tackle that, and then you're adding on medicated cycles to basically induce or persuade your body to do things, to force your body to do things, it can then cause a cascade of even further imbalance down the road. So that's just something to think about. And that's why I'm always just a huge advocate of always figuring out what is at the root of what is going on with your fertility struggles first before investing your time, your energy, your money, your body into medicated cycles and fertility treatments. So that's just my little soapbox on that. So the woman is 32 years old, so in her young 30s, and she reported having regular periods and cycles about 27 to 29 days, periods of about 4 to 5 days long with bright red flow, day 2 being heavy and the rest being medium or light. No spotting during a cycle or any more than 1 day before a new cycle started. So typically that sounds like a pretty healthy cycle. But starting in July, she started noticing spotting 1 to 3 days before her period and suspected she could have a luteal phase defect and low progesterone just based off of her luteal phase, basal body temperature, and length. So now we're going to get into some of the labs that she shared with me. And of course, this is not a comprehensive review by any means. There are some labs that are missing that I would want to review with one of my clients. Also, I don't have their supplements, their diet, their exercise regimen, their stress, or anything like that. So this is just like a basic level when I get on one of my free fertility strategy sessions with someone who is wanting support to help them conceive. This is what I'm looking at. The labs and the tests that they have had done so far to just give me a little bit of an idea of where are you currently? What are things looking like? And then I show you the roadmap of this is what I would recommend to get you to point B, which is being pregnant, having a baby, right? So you're at point A with your labs, your tests, your current lifestyle, nutrition, those types of things. And how can we get you to point B? So that's what we cover on my free fertility strategy calls, which if you're interested in having one, you can find me on Instagram and just DM me the word baby, and we can get you hooked up with a free fertility strategy session. So she did have an antral follicle count of 14, which we do like to see numbers above 12. So that was looking good. She had a saline sonogram that looked good and all clear. And then we'll dive into her labs, and I'm going to give little tips and things that I like to see with certain labs. So she had some cycle day 3 labs ran in mid-December, and the only thing that I saw that was shared here was an LH level, so luteinizing hormone, and that was 8.46. Unfortunately, there wasn't an FSH that I could find anywhere, so it is really, really helpful to have both LH and FSH and your estradiol drawn on cycle day 3. That's really giving us an idea of that baseline, that foundation in your follicular phase where these hormones are at. And with the LH, we like to see it in a 1-to-1 ratio with FSH, but unfortunately, since I didn't see any FSH from this specific lab draw, I don't know if they're in a 1-to-1 ratio. Now we have some other labs. They're on cycle day 4, drawn in September, and everything that I'm referencing to was in 2024. And again, we have an FSH of 9.9, but I don't see where an LH was drawn. So I'm not able to see if the FSH and the LH are at a 1-to-1 ratio or not. That is something that could be an indicator of possible PCOS if they're at a ratio of 2-to-1, 3-to-1, or higher. With FSH, we do like to see levels around 4 to 7. And then, of course, the estradiol that was drawn on the same day was 46, and we do like to see between 30 and 50. So I would say that that level looks fine. And in some other labs drawn in December, we had a CRP level of 1.3. We do like to see below 1. So obviously it's not much above 1, but we like to see it below 1. So my thoughts would be there could be some inflammation present in the body. Where is that coming from? And that is something that we would want to dive in deeper together. Maybe there's something going on in the gut that we would want to look closer at. And then also from the December labs, we had a fasting glucose of 91. I like to see under 80 for fasting glucose, and then an insulin of 7.1, which we like to see that level under 5. So when I'm seeing both of those levels, and then also, I'll just skip ahead here, a lab drawn back in September, the A1C was 5.6, and we like to see 5.2 or lower. So seeing those 3 numbers, I'm thinking that there is some blood sugar dysregulation going, some insulin resistance going on. And, my biggest just general tips in terms of that is we really, really need to look at the diet. Diet is where we want to start. And then, of course, there's things like lifestyle, exercise. How much stress are you under right now? Are you getting good quality sleep? Are you moving your body every day? It doesn't have to be a hit or a crazy workout, but are you moving your body every day, or do you have a sedentary job and then maybe a sedentary lifestyle at home? So those are some things that we'd want to look at. And then, of course, in terms of supporting a healthy blood sugar level, are you eating in the morning within the first hour of waking up? Are you prioritizing protein, 30 grams of protein at each meal, especially in the morning? This is going to set your cortisol levels up for success, your blood sugar levels, and of course, all the downstream hormones like your reproductive hormones. And then eating your food in a particular order, starting with your protein, making sure you're getting in your quality fats, and then complex carbs. We don't want to eat pasta by itself. That's just going to give you a crazy blood sugar rise and crash. Or even when it comes down to some fruits, apples, bananas, oranges, these are all great and healthy and they have vitamins and nutrients. But if you're eating them by themselves, or as some people call it, naked carbs, that's not going to support healthy blood sugar levels. You want to pair it with something that's high in protein, with a quality fat, and that's going to help stabilize your blood sugar. So, really looking at how are you eating? It's very simple shifts and changes in your diet. You just might not be aware that, oh, I'm totally just not even including enough protein and healthy fats in my diet, and I'm not eating breakfast, maybe at all. That can be actually a big issue for some women, is they're just so busy, so on the go, that they're not prioritizing the the first meal of the day, which is the most important meal of the day. Then some other labs from September were AST and ALT. The AST was 20 and ALT was 21. We do like to see these under 19. They're really not that much over, but it is something to consider in terms of how we can support your liver, which is necessary for hormone metabolism, especially estrogen. So this is something that we would want to look at supporting and nourishing. And we also have a vitamin D level of 50, which I'm happy to see. That was back in September as well. I like to see between 50 and 70. So it's on the lower end of optimal, in my opinion. So one, we want to make sure that we are supporting that level to at least remain at 50 and not go below there. And then, of course, we have a TSH level of 2.42. So anything above 2, we want to look at. We want to dig deeper. Why is this going on? Are there some nutrient deficiencies going on? Is there something happening in terms of your gut health that is affecting your thyroid? Optimal is really between 1 and 1.5. Ideal between 1 and 2, but definitely anything over 2 we want to look at and we want to work on, because when you do have a TSH above 2, it can increase your risk of miscarriages and lots of other fertility and pregnancy related complications. So that's definitely something that we would want to dive deeper into. And then we also have an AMH level of 1.9, which is the lower end of normal, but it's not terrible. And honestly, making some simple changes with lifestyle and nutrition and maybe some targeted supplements can support that level and going up. All right, so in mid-December, we also had some androgen labs. So sex hormone binding globulin was 52.7. It's within the reference range on the lower end, or like mid-range, really. And then total testosterone was 40. I do like to see this level between 15 and 27. So it is above an optimal range, in my opinion. Even the conventional reference range is 2 to 45. So it's on the higher end of even the conventional normal. So this is something that we would want to look into. And seeing that there is some potential insulin resistance going on, I'm not totally surprised that the testosterone is a little high here. We also have free testosterone at 3.2 and bioavailable testosterone at 6.9. And interestingly, they tested for unconjugated DHEA, which was 557. Typically, we like to use DHEA-S, the sulfated form of DHEA, as a fertility marker. So per the reference range of the labs, it is within normal. The DHEA unconjugated version has a very short half-life, so it's just volatile in terms of it can fluctuate a lot, whereas the DHEA-S has a longer half-life and it's a little bit more stable in terms of being able to test. Either way, excess DHEA can lead to elevated androgens, and it can also lead to potential ovulation symptoms and poor egg quality. So I would just be curious to see what the DHEA sulfate level would be. There was also a lab back in August that she had, and it tested her progesterone 7 days past ovulation, and that was 5. So typically, any level 5 or above would be considered an ovulatory cycle. Anything below 5 would be considered an anovulatory cycle. So she did in fact ovulate. However, anything between 5 and 7, I would consider suboptimal egg quality. Anything between 7 to 10 is decent egg quality, and anything above 12, above 15 is good egg quality. So that is something that we would want to look at is your level of progesterone is determined by the egg that is released, which started its development about 90 to 100 days prior. So, really, what you're doing in your life now is going to impact the health of your egg that you ovulate 3 months from now. So, that is something to think about. This health of the egg that is being released, that egg then becomes the corpus luteum, which releases progesterone. So that is why if you have a lower level of progesterone being released, then that just means the quality of that corpus luteum isn't really great. It's suboptimal, and that all started with the egg that was released in that cycle. And remember, the quality of that egg is dependent upon what happened about 3 months prior. So that's something that we would want to look at. This can involve stress, nutrition, sleep, so many different things. And then if you really get into the nitty-gritty of root cause, what do you have going on in your body? Like going back to that CRP level that's above 1. Obviously, her CRP isn't off the charts, but is there something going on, and what is that? Because that's going to have a ripple effect in so many areas of your health, including fertility. So, really looking at the foundations of fertility, nutrition, lifestyle, stress, sleep. And then do you need tailored, targeted supplements to be able to support you in certain areas to fill in some gaps? So some things that I would really like to do if I were to work with this client is do a Dutch test. So Dutch is going to give me a really, really beautiful view and insight into the pathways of her androgens. What is going on in terms of her testosterone and her testosterone metabolites? What is going on with her estrogen and the pathways that estrogen has to go down to be metabolized? And also, if you do a particular Dutch test, you can actually see an entire cycle of both your estrogen and your progesterone, right? When is your progesterone peaking? Does your follicular phase support the development of the egg before it's released? How is your estrogen level looking? Do you tend to be more estrogen dominant, or is the ratio of your estrogen to progesterone off? And then also, what are your cortisol levels looking like? Are you preferring cortisone? Are you preferring cortisol? Are you having really, really low cortisol in the morning? Do you have like off the chart cortisol in the morning? So, what are your adrenals doing? And this is going to have such a big impact on your reproductive hormones. So, seeing what's going on, doing a nutrient analysis, seeing if there's any gaps that need to be filled there. Is there any sensitivities going on in terms of your gut health? And just a lot of places to investigate and look at. There's a few other labs that weren't taken that I would like to look at as well. And then there's even other things to consider, like your vaginal microbiome health. Sometimes, if we don't have fertility friendly microbes, maybe we have some anti-fertility microbes that can affect implantation. And even if you do get pregnant, some of those anti-fertility microbes can actually cause a miscarriage. So there's other factors that we would want to look at and rule out as well. Now, looking at the male partner, he is 33. And one interesting aspect about this case is he actually had his thyroid removed when he was very, very young. So, obviously, on medication to support that. And you can even see the variability that can happen. I had some labs that I saw from September. His TSH was 4.68. But then another lab in November, the TSH was 1.1. So I'm not sure if there was a medication change somewhere in there, but that's quite a difference. We also had some levels from September, an LH of 4.2, FSH of 5.3, estradiol 29, and total testosterone 499. And really, those are all fine. And we look at a semen analysis. Of course, there are a lot of other labs I would like to see for the male. There's a whole lab panel that I have drawn for males as well as females. I'm not seeing, like, I didn't see a CRP level or homocysteine or vitamin D or a lipid panel and things like that. So there's a lot more that we could be looking at. So his semen analysis from August was the lower end of volume, low, low, low concentration, lower than what we want for motility, low progressive motility, and also low morphology as well. But interestingly enough, he had repeated analyses in September and October, and they continued to improve. So the volume is just on the lower end. Of course, if the ejaculation has a lower volume, you're having less to work with. That is something to consider, but then it also matters what is present in that volume. The motility improved, the progression score stayed the same, the morphology improved, the total sperm count improved, but it could still use support. So again, the thyroid could be at play here, but looking at overall a more in-depth view of labs and doing a nutrient analysis. Are there nutrient deficiencies going on? Are there some intolerances going on in the body? Is there room for improvement in your nutrition, in your lifestyle, in your sleep? There are very targeted things that we can do to improve sperm health because it does take two to make a baby. The health of the sperm plays a large role in the development of the placenta. So think miscarriage risks and even how you feel in the first trimester in terms of nausea and things like that. So sperm health plays a very, very large role. But ideally, I would want to just get a deeper more comprehensive lab drawn for him, and then really looking at what's your lifestyle. So I know that they did share they don't smoke, they don't do drugs, they exercise a few days a week. So those are all really, really good places to start. But it is really all about figuring out, where do you have gaps in your fertility? Because my situation is going to be very different than someone else's situation and someone else from that person. So this is sometimes part of the issue that you can have if you have like your doctor drawing labs, your OB, even sometimes reproductive endocrinologists, like they're not taking a comprehensive overall view of your labs. Just like the two that I shared with, I had LH on this lab draw and I had FSH on this lab draw, but realistically, we want to have them on the same lab draw so we can see what the ratio is. And even testing for the unconjugated DHEA, let's test for the DHEA sulfate. So overall, for anyone who is wanting to really build your fertility foundations, looking at your diet, are you prioritizing protein at every meal? Are you including enough healthy fats to support your hormone production? Are you limiting or avoiding processed foods, seed oils, added sugars, artificial sweeteners? There's so many different things that can be harmful to your health. Are you focusing on buying organic for at least the dirty dozen? Are you prioritizing all colors of the rainbow, pasture raised, wild caught meats, eggs, dairy, things like that? And in terms of sleep, are you prioritizing at least 8 hours of sleep, going to bed by 10 o'clock, using blue light blocking glasses if you're going to watch TV or be on your phone? But ideally, you're putting your phone down at least an hour before you go to sleep. Are you getting first morning sunlight to trigger to your brain to release melatonin 12, 14, 16 hours from now, and also to help regulate your circadian rhythm, which the health of your circadian rhythm and your sleep is so pivotal in the health of so many other things. Because if you're not getting good sleep, it's going to play an effect on your cortisol levels. It's going to have a negative effect on your blood sugar levels. It's going to have a negative effect on your reproductive hormones. So prioritizing sleep isn't just, oh yeah, I know, but I'd rather stay up late and watch my shows. It's my only downtime, whatever the excuse may be. No, prioritizing your sleep is a game changer. So this is definitely something I would recommend. Moving your body a few times a week, getting some strength training. It's important for men, but especially for women, if you're dealing with blood sugar dysregulation, building muscle is going to help you with that. Not trying to get bulk or swole or anything like that, but just adding muscle to your body is going to have such a positive impact on your metabolism. And then, of course, like I said, through more testing, you're able to figure out, where are your gaps that need a little bit more support, right? Let's say you already have all these fertility foundations going on, you're working on them, improving them, and focusing on them every day. But where are these major gaps that are coming into play and affecting your fertility that might need a little extra support, whether it's with targeted supplements, herbals? What does that look like? And do you have something that's hidden that has not been addressed? Do you have gut dysbiosis going on? Do you have vaginal dysbiosis going on? Do you have dysbiosis going on in your mouth that can, of course, inherently affect your gut? Have you been exposed to Lyme disease or mold or other potential chemicals? It could be as simple as something just present in your house that could be affecting your fertility, whether it's mold or something else entirely that you might not have any awareness around. And that's why having more comprehensive labs to look at is going to give you a bigger picture of, okay, I'm seeing some indicators of potential inflammation here. We need to dig deeper. So if I were to work with a couple like this, I would take them through our 4-step restorative fertility method. So there's 4 steps. Step number 1 is reveal. So that's sort of what we did today, but at a limited basis because the doctors only ordered certain labs and tests and things like that. So the reveal step that I do with my clients is much more comprehensive to give us an actual understanding of what could be going on underneath and where, if needed, do we need to dig a little bit deeper. So really discovering why you're having difficulty conceiving or carrying to term, and that's really through this comprehensive labs and testing that we do. And something also that's really, really cool is, yes, we're doing these labs and these tests, which will tell us things on a physical level, but there's also this beautiful intake process that I have, and it informs me on an energetic level where you are currently standing in your fertility, right? Are there things that are potentially impacting your fertility based on how you were raised, the relationship that you have with a parent, a sibling, with yourself, past relationships? It really informs not just the physical aspects of what could be going on with your fertility, but also the energetic aspects as well. And then, of course, step 2 is remove. So, what we find in step 1, either on a physical or energetic level, we're going to identify and let go of what is not serving you in getting pregnant and carrying to term. What is in the way? What is maybe taking up space and affecting your body that is preventing you from conceiving or carrying to term. And so step 2 is remove. We're going to remove that from what we find. Step 3 is rebalance. So rebalancing your body through bio-individualized strategies. So this is going to be dependent upon what we find in step 1, right? This could be things that are affecting the adrenals or the thyroid, the gut or the vaginal microbiome, your hormones, egg and sperm quality, potential epigenetics, right? So many different things, and it is so unique to each individual that this is really what sets working with a holistic and integrative fertility expert apart from working with a conventional provider, because you're just not going to get this tailored and personalized protocol to serve you and your fertility. And then step 4, which really isn't the last step, this is something that we're going to be doing all throughout our time together, is receive. And that's just supercharging your fertility with mindset work, energetic work. We're going to strengthen that mind-body connection that is inherently there, but has really been silenced or dimmed, or we just don't really have a strong connection with that with ourselves yet. But all of these pieces are going to help basically like put together the puzzle pieces to why you're not conceiving so you can conceive. So remember what I said, you're here at part A, we kind of dig into that, and then we set a personalized plan to figure out how we can get you to point B, getting and staying pregnant, starting and growing your family. So I hope that you learned some things about optimal labs today. And if you want to have your labs reviewed, you can submit them to me. There will be a form in the show notes. If you have any questions about it, you can reach out to me on Instagram at _wellness_pharmacist. And I hope that you got some value out of this. I do also have my Fast Track Fertility formula, which goes over all of the fertility foundations that I briefly touched on in this episode. That no matter what the root cause of your fertility issues are, solidifying these 4 fertility foundations in your life is going to help you no matter what could be going on, no matter what the issue is, unless it's genetics or something going on with your anatomy. These 4-step foundations are going to help support your fertility. Super curious to hear your thoughts on this type of episode. Did you find it helpful? Do you want your labs and history reviewed? Reach out to me. I want to hear from you, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.